when I started to work with energy, and especially when I started to channel, I was guided to stop reading books, no sort of courses, no learning, just trusting what came through myself, trusting the guidance, and really building up that trust, and not going into, oh, what exactly is happening here, or reading up to that knowledge. I needed to just be with the experience. So my path from that state, I would say, have been the experience, and to really feel the shift in energy and frequency within myself, and also to watch and witness the shift within others.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and seafood Taoist Master San Qing, and I have got another incredible guest here today. It seems as though the universe keeps giving me these amazing beings to have conversation with, or perhaps just conscious moments. I want to welcome to the podcast Camilla KumaRa, who is a channel and, oh my goodness, I mean, that's where you want to start, a light language expert, a spiritual guide. There are so many facets to an incredible offering right here, right now. Welcome to the podcast, my dear friend.
Thank you so much. I am very excited to be here and to have this conversation with you.
It is always welcome. These incredible experiences, I tend to relate to the conversation that I have here on the podcast, because everyone gets to experience the energy potential that comes with this very moment. So I'm very grateful you're here. How about we start with the audience, an abbreviated version of how you got to this point?
Well, I'm Swedish. I live in Sweden, and so I would say that I had a pretty ordinary upbringing, and in a very sort of ordinary environment, but there was also an openness to the spiritual realms in my family, especially through my mother. And already as a young teenager, 13, 14, I felt like an old soul. And this feeling kept growing very much stronger along the time. And there was some difficulties in knowing how to cope with the ordinary world, what to do in life, and how to see myself. And so I would say that I tried the sort of life as a young woman, and studying and working, but very, very soon my spiritual longing kept poking me from the inside out. My soul kept speaking in a more and more loud language. And so already in my early 20s, I needed to change direction from a more ordinary path forward to really think about, how can I express my soul in this world? How can I be in this world with my spiritual gifts? And more and more, I stepped into those shoes of exploring spirituality in different ways. And I started to channel mostly, I would say, angels, angelic beings, ascended masters, and eventually that continues to develop, and I started to channel star family, star beings, and this kept on developing. And I have been working as a spiritual guide for about 10 10 to 12 years now. And I would say my path is to let my soul come through and to be of service and to step out of the way of being of service. So it is a lot about allowing what wish to come through. And when I receive guidance to do something, to create something, to have a group going on a sacred journey or something, it is about feeling into what wish to come through and happen, and where are we supposed to go. So I am so much about being in this synchronicity and allowing flow and just listening to the guidance and trusting and not being afraid or blocking myself of letting that come through. I would say that is my way of being with spirit and working with spirit.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always interesting hearing the deciphering messages that people have from their own experiences.
Mhm.
Maybe you know, you don't know. I've personally been channeling and teaching people channeling probably for about 32 years now, and this is my bag. As Austin Powers would say, "This is my bag, baby."
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a very interesting space. I mean, it took me straight to being ordained as a Taoist priest, two lineages of
Yes.
Taoism over in
But
China.
isn't that combination of the Tao tradition and channeling, isn't that a bit unusual to combine those two?
Oh, absolutely not. Taoism was founded on channeling. The highest level of ascension is channeling.
Nice.
That goes right back to the roots of the first conception of Taoism from the Yellow Emperor, one of my teachers that I lean on and have dialogue with. I refer to the dialogue with my teachers as the access to the monologue of the mother, the pure source, the high level of ascension. Yes, channeling is absolutely sort of more dismissed within the idea of it is not very well known within Taoism because most people consider Taoism just a philosophy.
Yeah.
Um, it's both. It's a philosophy and it's a religion, which I'm a priest in two lineages of Taoism, one a 66 generation holder, another one 126 generation holder. And so understanding the deeper nature of how that divine spark like blossoms from within you to give you a true understanding that whatever the message is that you're getting. Now, there are facets of clairsenses that I teach people. I just kind of call it sensory perception, right? But I mean, we go into clairsense, mediumship channeling,
Yeah.
magic, specifically real magic that gets tested by a lot of my peers that are parapsychologists, physicists, scientists. So
Oh, that's very interesting.
they're measuring this stuff at a much more of a zeros and ones sort of level. I've been measuring my brain waves for probably better part of 10 or 15 years. So I know when I access a certain point of ascension,
Yeah.
what the physical transmutation of that will be in this material realm. So when I hit a 40 hertz or, I've gone up to 400 hertz brainwave, you are embodying that. And that's when I witness physical healings. They transmute before my very eyes. This is the kind of stuff that I've been experiencing for 30 years. So I want to delve deep more into your knowing moment. There's sort of fundamental things that are sort of universal for most channelers. We're all vehicles. We're all taking in information. I always remind people all thoughts of your mind are not yours. They're coming from somewhere, but it ain't coming from you. And now that's the determining factor is where exactly is that information coming from? Viscerally, back in the day, back when I first started this stuff, you measure the degree of saturation of the physical flesh from the transmuted signal. And, so I can put my hand up, light a lighter under my hand and leave it there, pull it off after a minute, and there's no damage to the flesh. I don't feel anything. It's a subatomic level thing. When you get this information, and I mean, a lot of people get deterred. I channel with my eyes open, and most people are like, holy crap, that's crazy. You don't blink for like, I don't know, 15 minutes. It's wild.
Yeah.
There's this information that comes through, and it seems to be more common. Like 30 years ago, I would have someone coming to me with a mental emotional disorder, potentially on the fringe of being diagnosed as psychotic. And then we go deeper. We start to understand that that's not what that person was experiencing. And furthermore, I mean, I could go down the psychology route that I'm not a fan of, but the reality is we're all experiencing these transmissions. And how are you able to obtain a very valid sense of knowing what that information is and how that relates to said individual, group, things of that nature? What seems to be consensus, and again, there are always variables, but 99% of the time, and I've interviewed and have hundreds of channelers that are my dear friends, there's a form of information that comes down very similar to like a beam of like saturated light. Of course, everything is light, but it's a visceral feeling that comes from the top down to the physical body as an anchor. And it becomes a visceral sort of somatic experience that you cannot replicate. And then you're literally in a vessel that you're witnessing this information coming from you, and you're not the conductor of the end message, but you're an observer. How are you experiencing your state of knowing within your own journey as a mastered channel?
Well, I would start with how it began, the channeling for me. I learned to access the Akashic records. And the method I learned was with a key prayer. And with this prayer that was said 3 times, I felt, I remember this so clearly. I tried it out the first time, and I felt the shift in frequency within me. That was my first really trying to do something like this. And I grabbed a pen and a paper. That was how I was supposed to do this. So I read the prayer 3 times, and I had the pen and the paper, and then I just started to write. So
now,
it was...
On a side note, I need to ask you this. Is that a Linda Howe sort of ritual?
It is not. I think Linda Howe has developed the tradition further. So how I learned it from 2 teachers, one from America and one from Australia, I think, coming to Sweden. Because they had met my brother on a journey in Egypt. You see? So we had a small group, a course. So I think Linda Howe is one of these persons who have developed it and changed it a bit and wrote a book and so on.
Yeah, it just sounded familiar. Yeah. I interviewed her about a year ago. She's on the podcast. If you ever look through it, it's interesting. It's an interesting, the entry level to inception for any seeker of any faith, any belief system, really comes from that somatic resonance.
Yes.
So you're using this vehicle of language to evoke this kinesthetic, visceral response that makes you recognize the truth.
Yes, and for me, it was very clear vibrationally. I felt the frequency change in my energy field, although at that point, this was 2007, I just felt it, and I wrote, and I started to write questions, and I answered the questions, and I asked, who is it that I am I asked for the being, who is it that I am writing the answer from? And the first times it was Jesus, Joshua, because it was natural, because he was close to me in my life. I had always felt his presence, even though I didn't, go to church that much and so on, but I felt his presence. And then it was different. It was Archangel Gabriel, and it was further on, it was Mary Magdalene. And I started this way. So when I began, I wrote, and I felt the difference in the frequency. And I was guided to start to have groups, guiding groups, and doing this channeling with the archangels. But pretty soon I changed the way I did it. I started to channel for the group live and not preparing by writing, because in the beginning I only wrote the messages. But after a while, I stopped using this tool with the prayer and the Akashic records, and I just I aligned my energy. So I did a sort of a ritual by aligning my energy with the higher source and the great central sun and the sun, and going through my energy system and my heart, connecting with Mother Earth and the heart of Mother Earth. And so I did this alignment and centering and aligning, which I still do every time. And I just opened up the space, and I asked to be connected with the highest possible wisdom and the highest possible dimensional beings that I can be connected with. And I just allow whatever to come, and I could ask questions. And so I have always been a conscious channeler. I don't go into this trance state of not knowing what I have said. I am always conscious. Sometimes I close my eyes, but sometimes I speak with open eyes. I can take questions and shift over to channel, and then I can speak as me. And so I go in between. And in time, this has become very easy for me to go in between and changing whatever frequency. For me, it's like the radio. I tune in the intuitively to the station needed for that question, or for that client, or for this group, so that the highest possible answers can come through me, and to not stand in the way for that wisdom to come through. This is how it works for me now.
It's interesting because there's this undertone or underlying construct that always takes place with people. It starts with intrigue and curiosity that evokes hope. Hope turns into a belief system. Belief system is then validated by a knowing. Now, the knowing can come in many forms. I transmute it because I teach people it's alchemy. Highest level of ascension is accessing direct source, primordial mother, and the information is very conclusive in relation to present moment predictions, advanced understanding of information, and furthermore, the simplicity of something like if I teach someone psychic readings, and that's what I call an auric reading. So you look at the transmuted information from someone's energy field. Within a Taoist process, there's 9 energy centers that you start with, leading into 108. But it's a level of ascension and cultivational practices that bring you to that realization. I tend to find that once you hit about 27 actualized energy centers and they're refined and tuned, you can pretty much be superhuman and do supernatural things that people consider superhuman, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual healing. And it's furthermore happening now. It's not a transitory faded state of unobtainable realization. That's sort of like where a lot of people I feel these days are getting into this state where, okay, this is very exciting. You are accessing information. What value? What does it do for you or others? And how can you validate that it is of any weight or consequence in this present moment? And so, I mean, you look absolutely amazing. You're magical. You're youthful. But I would bring you back to the attention of 1980s, if you can remember that particular decade.
This was my childhood.
Right. And so in America, they had this thing called the Pepsi Challenge. I don't know whether you ever heard of that. It was a very large...
Sorry.
No, go ahead. It was a commercial sort of phenomenon. And basically, they'd take Coke and Pepsi, and they'd interview people in the street, and they'd put cups over the top of them and get them to sample it, and the audience would tell the interviewer which is better, Pepsi or Coke. And they'd always say, I like this one. And then they'd take the cup off and they go, oh, wow, it's Pepsi. Wow, that's amazing. Anyway, this was just a campaign. But I kind of use that because I'm obsessed with pop culture and it's sort of part of my childhood. I look at, the now moment as show me. It's a show me moment of you are experiencing this visceral feeling. We've had oscillating transmissions through the beginning of this conversation, and more as it unravels, the evidence of that becomes more within your physical body. These conversations are experiences. The experiential moment is the only thing that can validate the truth to the seeker. The seeker that's on their righteous path, their path of knowing, that comes from that visceral experience. So when you're doing these things and you look at an experience, a transmission, a guidance for a group, is there a theme that your source information tends to lead you towards that is more common for the greater good, or is it more individualized? You say you're conscious, and I find that is always something that's an invitation for conversation, because there isn't a moment in time that people are not in a fleeting state. You see, trance channeling is some new age, in my opinion, mumbo jumbo definition of channeling. I'm not, like I said, consciously, biologically, I've been doing this for 32 years. I was 20 back in the day, and now
I can imagine.
And back in those days, it was psychiatric ward stuff. From the foundation of my priesthood, I did all variable things. I teach people Taoist magic. I mean, that's beyond this realm. And then you have the simplicity of psychology, conscious and unconscious behavior. Now, psychology, in my opinion, is a very large effort to separate you from yourself, and is a mechanism that people use to manipulate. It's far from definitive in relation to advancing someone's knowing and who they are. Yet it seems to continue to have some type of merit or evidence base that would conclude to someone that I've got, it's all happening in my mind. Well, the mind, in truth, is all things. When you discover that, when you are completely in what we call Taoism beyond a point of no return, you are the primordial mother. So you're no place, no person, no thing. And from that, you're able to obtain instantaneous echoing result within this material. Furthermore, I mean, most people sort of allude to it being a dimensional type of thing, whether that's how you see the state of this present moment is for you to determine. Yet many people are talking about it from a physicist's perception, where there's a dimension. This is the third dimension, fourth, fifth. Consciousness is frequential. That's how a Taoist looks at it. Everything is frequential. That means that the simplicity, the deciphering tool for your reality is yin yang. You take that and you're able to decipher all things. It's the same as observing the center point. Everything has a center point. So that Vestica is the crossover of the yin and yang, which is the unification of the polarizing effects of this material. It's no longer electromagnetism. To obtain the sort of frequency that you're obtaining, it is a unified state. It's a whole. It's one. Or furthermore, some people might call it, as a physicist perspective, the singular. I refer to it as the primordial mother. This is an access point that a Taoist will get from basically observing that everything is a bellows. The simplicity of this reality is everything is a bellows. Everything is contracting and expanding at the same time. You're all things and nothing at the same time. And how you get there to that consciousness is the center point. How do
but I recognize this this feeling of being both everything and nothing at the same time, especially from all the group meditations that we do, that I guide, and which goes, I am guided to go into the 0 point state. So it is an inner journey, or we journey with our light bodies, but in this state of 0 point, and you can feel that everything that you are, your body, your mind, your feelings, everything slows down and becomes extremely still. And I would guess that it's very interesting that you bring up this with brain waves, and how you have, this is something that I've been so curious to know about myself. I don't know anyone that can do these kinds of experiments with me, especially when I do light language. What happens actually when we do this? But the 0 point meditations, in that state, I have felt such the paradox of being in contact with everything and nothing, and that the personal self really becomes one with a higher self and with it all. So it is a feeling or experience of being in that oneness state. But everything that I do, because I am not, when I started to work with energy, and especially when I started to channel, I was guided to stop reading books, no sort of courses, no learning, just trusting what came through myself, trusting the guidance, and really building up that trust, and not going into, oh, what exactly is happening here, or reading up to that knowledge. I needed to just be with the experience. So my path from that state, I would say, have been the experience, and to really feel the shift in energy and frequency within myself, and also to watch and witness the shift within others, and to encourage them to speak about this. How do you feel, and what shift do you feel? And to find a language for that. But I do not have the whole explanations, and the physics, because that hasn't been the way that I need to do this. My way has been intuitive, and just to allow and to really have us all, because often it's a group, myself included, and the group, to experience another level of who we are actually, and reality, and to travel within those different realms. Just explaining a little bit that sometimes I lack in language to say exactly what I do. because it's so intuitive. Can you relate to that?
I mean, you're in so many words speaking the same thing. I mean, a Taoist path, a seeker is very much parallel to what they call gnosis, know thyself. So you are speaking on the fringe of this, exactly the same thing. Within Taoism, that's it. It's like, if you are thinking, you are not knowing. If you are knowing, you are feeling. And that comes from the very core of the teaching. And one of the teachers that I have remind me, when you have to learn it, you do not know it. If you know it, you do not have to learn it. And this is part of the student is the teacher is the student, which is the very, as you put it, a paradox that comes within finding that center point. You refer it to a 0 point. That anyone, if you mention that, anyone would assume you're speaking from a physics perspective, because that's basically understanding the unified field, which is basically understanding the entanglement, which is the string theory of physics. 0 point is a frequency that is beyond the electromagnetism of the space. So when people refer to 0 point, it's the center point, the vesica. Now, within that, on more discovery and inquiry, you will find that that is the source of black hole energy. Now, black hole energy is an ancient practice that Taoists have been teaching for thousands of years. So one activation for alchemical processes, which basically, if you don't have your attunement of your alchemy within your energy potential, you cannot create from above heaven within this material space. So further discovery will bring you to this point where within Taoism, we have this cultivational practice called the observation of the death of a star, the raising of the red phoenix, which is the spirit and keeper of the middle dantian, which is the energy elixir field, which reveals the black hole energy, which is the primordial mother. That furthermore, that comes from the evidence of once you take this space, which is electromagnetic frequency that can be measured, when you hit the event horizon of a black hole, frequentially, it's beyond measure. It's beyond measure. So then people would lean on something called a scalar wave as identifying what they believe is the frequency that is transmitted within a black hole. From all the ancient teachers from Taoism for hundreds of thousands of years, quite frankly, it starts with the void. And from the void is the reflection of the mother that creates the seed of creation, which is the diamond. And that is gestized within the primordial womb that then evokes the creation of all things within a cycle of 9, which happens to be conception to birth of human life. And so this is relevant. Oh yeah, that charge you got right. You're picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah, so I smile because I did a guided, I did a transmission yesterday, a webinar, and what I channeled and we were guided to experience was the inner diamond and the greater diamond. So the diamond keeps coming up, and
it's so interesting, right?
Yeah. So all these symbols and my experience is that so many times that what is in the unified field, that there are so many of us from different traditions working spiritually and channeling and healing and so on, or writing. We tap into the same symbols, of course, and we tap into the patterns and topics and themes that is moving around in the field at the same time.
Yeah, I mean that the compression from the void, the primordial mother, the conception and gestation of the diamond, which we refer to this reality as perfection manifest. It is the perfection of the diamond. So when I have dialogue, and it's a mastered sort of skill, When I talk to my teachers, they're the same as seeing you. I hear them the same way I hear you. It is a very tangible, palpable experience. And furthermore, I had a dear friend of mine down at my temple here, and I keep having inviting and welcoming discussion about energy potential and what ascension really means. As you get higher, it becomes more palpable. The energy is more dense. It does not become air light and fairy to a point that you cannot experience it. This barometer, this tuning fork, is your physical flesh to register and acknowledge the experience that you're having. Furthermore, that validates that self-realization must come from the experiential moment, yet it must be validated, or it's nothing more than a transitory, fleeting, psychotic moment. You have to have a method that will validate this experience. There are so many people that get into that space and without being able to describe it in their own language. And you mentioned the diamond. The diamond for a Taoist sits in the upper dantian, which is a reflection of the sun, which is also a reflection of light itself. And then the middle dantian has a red ruby, which is also a reflection of the earth. And the earth is a reflection of information. And then, of course, the lower dantian is the primordial mother, which is a reflection of the green, or actually blue emerald, that reveals itself within the moon. And the moon is the transmuted version of energy potential within this realm. So you go into union, communion, and the solidifying of these creates the crystalline realization. Now, furthermore, this is platinum, this is gold, this is silver. When you unify these as elements, because when I speak of alchemical, I am literally talking about alchemical. I will teach you how to be in imperium of your physical body, which of course will be a reflection of the primordial mother. That means your thoughts are no longer separated in this idea of a mind. You are attached to this present moment, meaning that if you think something, it will be realized. Manifestation, magic, healing. This is the culpability of the cultivational practice. So it's not just oh, I think I had a feeling, oh, that was so nice. Oh, you can't quantify it. You can't qualify it. You must, as a seeker, be able to develop your own language. And then when you talk about the diamond, some of my friends who are deep into remote viewing, I teach people remote viewing. It's another facet of what you would call sensory perception. The reality is they've sort of watered it down to this understanding of what's someone coined as ideomotor response, which is evidence of divinity, right? And you can find that evidence in your, as you said, your frequency, your vibration. So it's transmuting through the physical flesh at all times, whether you are conscious of it or not. You can instantly decipher all things if you understand and refine the method that is relevant for you within your unique journey and path of self-realization. So that development can come in all forms, but furthermore, we would call that what we call an ideogram, where you're able to communicate with your unconscious process and you're giving yourself a language. Now, that's a certain developed skill. I go from that. I kind of fast track most of my students from that type of process to clear audio, clear vision, and that you're not messing around with potential language that you have to decipher. Everyone goes through it. Everyone has their own method. That I tend to fast track on that. That's not really my thing. My personality is a bit of nonsense. I don't have time for that. I want the information.
But I do see it as we need a way of describing, and we need a language, but to a certain degree, I would say it's very easy for some, especially in the Western world, especially, to go from the positive side of having a language to being overly mental about and to analyze what is going on. And I feel that what is important in the end of it is how our experience of energy and experiencing other dimensional states and so on, how that is being embodied and transferred into our daily lives, and how we develop as human beings and how we are in life, more than being able to describe in detail everything that happens within our own transformations, that how we are in our embodiment of the divine, of our soul, and so on, that is the most important.
No,
That's how
I
I
agree with
see
you.
it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But most people, when they first start, get the what I call the bite of the spiritual dragon. They're misaligned because they're on the path of this mundane reality, identifying with the flesh and blood that looks back at them in the mirror as their self. And this is a misconception. This is a delusion that comes with the psyche. It comes with, as you put it, mental, human beings are into introspective, analytical. They're negative in their base of programming, because that's exactly how you come out of the chute. There's two things in objects of what your desire is, which is to reproduce and to live another day. That's about it. So you must then blossom from that and realize that is not the true nature of reality. From that, you go from misaligned to aligned. And aligned is the epiphany of what I call supernormal experiences, where you hear a voice, grandma comes to you in your dream, you have a lucid dream, you have an out-of-body experience, you have a premonition, you have a prediction, you see things that other people can't, auras, energies. These are all whimsical, magical examples of someone on their path of realization going,
Yes.
I want more of that. But then if they're unobtained and they're fleeting moments, which I find most people have, they have fleeting moments, they get a taste of something, they sort of focus on that, go, oh, I'm a psychic, I'm a medium, I'm a healer, I'm a channeler, I'm this. Yet that it hasn't come to its full flourishing of expansion, which is everyone has the same potential. No one is limited. But what happens is people become very stuck in their belief system, and that is where people get deluded in thinking they know, which is the fundamental problem. If you have an absolute, I always tell people, if someone has an absolute truth, about face and run in the other direction. There is no absolute. The only absolute truth is your truth. And so how do you develop that mastery to be the Sherlock to your Watson, my dear?
Yeah. Yes.
Find those crumbs
Totally
that
agree.
are validated for you. And this is where I think we are in agreement of this. And I think through this whole dialogue, we're having the same epiphanies in relation to this. I don't water it down. I've come across, I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of exorcisms in my path as a Taoist priest, house clearings, feng shui. That's what I
Did you
specialize in.
say exorcisms?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, it's an irregularity that it all comes from someone's belief system. So the first fundamental for a Taoist magic is understanding that 99% of people in this space, as you would call it, you refer to it as a realm, they operate on the five senses. They operate that they are human. They operate that they have emotions. And first and foremost, the first delusion is they believe their emotions control them. And so to start with something that is a fundamental seeker to a belief system and a knowing, you must be able to identify your emotions don't control you, you control your emotions. And furthermore, this is not the operating system for this realm, as you put it. Yet most people express and emote themselves because they believe the currency is emotion. Yet really, when you go deeper in that, there's three ingredients to this reality: a thought, an emotion, and a feeling. That's it. Now, what you do with those and how you cultivate those and expand on them would water all the stuff we're talking about, right down to the simplicity. And I know that you appreciate simplicity, as you refer to it, as intuitive. You're either, your glass is half empty or half full. How do you see your reality? That's it, which refers back to what I talk about, which is the bellows, where everything is contracting and expanding at the same time. You're all things and nothing at the same time. And for you to realize what we call between the breath in and the breath out, which is between yin and yang, is the Vesica point. That center point, you call it zero, zero energy. That is where the secret source, that is the gateway to all things. Now, when you obtain that through the breath in and the breath out, and this alchemical process that I teach people, you then hold that resonance. So, you know, in simplicity, we look at reality as this. You're experiencing this as a soul, a spirit, a unified state that is looking through the lens of the humanistic expression of yourself. And so everything is light. So light to wave to matter to particle, realize with your attention, intention, you cut from the cloth of perfection, which would be the 0 point. We call it the primordial mother. Furthermore, we call it Wu Ji. And with that, you create distortion, as my dear friend, the Buddhist monk Martin would say, dukkha, the dukkha, the distortion. This is what most people are observing, which is their mental and emotional state.
Yes.
From that, you create different variables of energy potential. And that energy potential will come in the form of, as you have created, as you are a creator, it transmutes into a bottle, a cup, a mug, you, me. And furthermore, that then is identified as energy. So that energy has a vibration. That vibration has a frequency. And I think the big banger that we're talking about that we both agree on is once you obtain that frequency and you can hold that resonance, oh, yes, it will be yours. Oh, yes, it will. So your ability to master yourself as a tuning fork, to transmit that frequency at will, to share with others in their own spiritual journey. They come across you. They're like, oh, my goodness, this is profound, because you're able to breathe in and breathe out as the present moment and transmute that in a form that you would identify as channeling. I'm not a fan of this trance channeling nonsense, but anyway, hey, look, that's a personality thing. You are transmitting this frequency. The chill that you and I get right now, it's like when I do this and you feel a rippling effect of energy through your body that's a charge. How do you know that? Dude, I've been teaching alchemical psychic stuff for 30 years. I see it.
You have some experience there.
Well, I see it and I experience it if I choose to, but I have no inhibitions. I surrender and experience everything. The old expression, you got to try everything once, in my opinion.
Yes. It was something that you said that I thought about. I have realized throughout the recent years that it's been a focus of mine and a change within, that I am in a state of neutrality, and that I am in a way guided to be in that state of neutrality. But it is also just something that occurs, that the change, I would say, within me, from my early years, where I was more of an empath kind of type of person, feeling a lot. And, I was in a room when I was in my 20s, and I was in a room and I felt everyone's feelings, and I was, very much in everyone else's boxes and trying to make everything work together. Now, when that changed with my own inner journeys and over the years, I have realized that coming from a state of neutrality, it's a different kind of love. So when I am with another person, or when I work with a person, or when I am working with healing or whatever, I am less into the feeling of how I support them. I am more in a neutral state, and I would connect that state with a 0 point energy as well. But in that neutral state, the love is more universal. It is less clingy, sort of using a word from how we are sometimes in this world. It's less attachment in how will the outcome be for this person. The neutral state is more, I am just opening up the space for the energy to come through. The love is more of universal love, and I hold space for that. But I do not worry about how will this person heal, or am I doing, the correct thing, or how will this be afterwards? Or this neutral space is very peaceful. And I see that this space can allow us to connect on an even more expanded state. It's just something that I have reflected over, and sometimes someone asks about it and wonder, is it like you don't personally care? It's not the same. No, that's not the same thing. It is more of being in that universal love, which is less personal, but it is more loving in another sense. I don't know if you have. What is your take on that?
Well, you're referring to the primordial mother, the present moment.
Well, I would guess so.
Yeah, you're not place, person, or thing. This is what we call the point of no return. So you become detached, but you are attached. And so what happens is this neural state or non-dualist state, this non-centric state that you're in, is furthermore evidence of how you are able to, if you think something, it is realized. It's not in the personality of Camilla, it is just now. And so when you attach as you put it, the 0 point, I would say furthermore that the currency is no longer a mental emotional thing. I'm not invested in anything. Love is not even on the menu when I witness physical, mental, emotional, spiritual healings, because I am no place, person, or thing. I'm the primordial mother. Furthermore, you look at it from a yin and yang perspective. This is identifying the polarizing effects of electric and magnetic, but nowhere in there do we refer to things as good and bad, heaven and hell, evil. And, the thought of these processes becomes very limited from a humanistic perspective. So we always start with love as the first barometer that is subjective, because until someone equalizes or increases their frequency to be able to access this present moment through your journey, you're going to have a subjective view of what love is. Love to you might be, rainbows and unicorns, and to me, it's razor blades and bunny rabbits. There is a subjective viewpoint. As you ascend, you can quickly access someone's attention to blend into this state with what they call gratitude. Because I could give you a compliment or hand you $5, you're going to find, oh, this is very satisfying. It makes me whole when there's a level of approval or acceptance, and ultimately you move from gratitude to accepting, allow all things, which comes in the form of what we call Wu Ji, which is the primordial mother. Now, on a Taoist path, there's 9 levels of ascension. It starts with the physical body, energetic body, spiritual body, sun body, earth body, moon body, oneness body, ultimate body, and then being with all things, which in essence is the ultimate, because you have imperium. Furthermore, someone might dilute it to dominion. You are the maestro to this now moment. And by bringing that unified state, magical, mystical things happen. As you mentioned, as you referred to, I'm not concerned by the myopic, in and outs of someone individually, in a mental, emotional, physical. It happens because the frequency is met with a remembrance. So
Yes.
when you acquire that frequency and you hold that resonance as you transmit it to your students, people around you, remember, this is a part of this mirroring effect of the yin and yang dualistic state that we are in. You project, as we would put it, transmit the mother, and the mother gives the seeker, the receiver, the recipient, a remembrance, going, oh, I've felt this before. Holy moly. I've been here. There's a level of deja vu.
Yes, definitely. And moments when this comes up so frequently is when I speak what I call light language. Mostly it is referred to as light language. I speak the sounds, the words that come through in that energetic state that I'm in. Sometimes it's toning, chanting, and sometimes it's words. And the reaction is just that, oh, I remember this, I recognize this, I can't understand what you're saying with my mind, but my whole being knows. You don't have to. It is like the frequencies goes zzz, and everyone is receiving on the level of where they are, of course, but the experience of connecting in that state. And also, if you have two persons, me and another, doing the same thing, I have some friends that do equally work with light language, speak light language, and so on. And when we connect in that space, it is as if that joy that comes from so deep within, in that moment of connection, it is beyond anything. And we speak words that no one understands, but it is as if all the wisdom of the universe lands within the very cells of our bodies. And it's just very, very fascinating. It's just gratitude. The whole experience. I am very grateful for letting that part of me knowing how to do this, knowing how to step out of the way of this to occur. I am grateful for that, and to not being afraid, not feeling I don't know what this is, so I cannot open my mouth because it sounds strange. So the trust in that is it's important and fun.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you go right back to what I say, if you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you're feeling. The simplicity of that. And furthermore, back to the bellows, you're contracting and expanding. And we always remind people that man is not like that. Man becomes exhausted. So I always, the first question when someone comes to me, I want to learn all this stuff, I want to do this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like excited. First and foremost, we must ask inquiry, the first question. How do you feel at the end of your day? Well, I'm exhausted. Aha. Here lies the very separation, because this is where the deluded state, where I get most people that are psychics, channels, light workers, energy healers, Reiki masters, Qigong masters. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. They always return to a deeper knowing and to access that primordial mother. That state is, first you must identify the physical body is a transmuted version of energy. Now you can create and develop imperium over that, which is the mastery of alchemy. So when someone is created within this space and it comes in the form of physical flesh, there is what we call within Taoism constitution. You have Jing. This is a constitution that you are born into this realm with. That is, I identify and I use the analogy as a battery. You have a battery that starts with the baseline of who this physical flesh. This is the vehicle that holds the, as we call it, Shen, which is spirit. Some people call it the soul, the oversoul, all this kind of stuff. The bottom line is you must master this to be the lens and the transmuted vehicle for this potential. And once you realize that this is another facet of that, but there's the delusional part. Most people get involved with energy and they're like, I'm channeling this and I'm doing that. And oh man, I can only do 3 or 4 sessions a day because by the end of it, I'm done. I'm like, okay, there lies the very answer to your question, Watson, because people are using their life force, which never has to be the case. If you understand the universe, the primordial mother, the Tao is abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite.
Yes.
So there is a lot of talking heads that get you caught up in this roller coaster ride, this psychic carnival of deception, because they want you to either stay under their thumb or however they want it. You must understand that once you have Imperium over these 50 trillion cells through the alchemical process, what I always offer or suggest is a method to your cultivation, as they would put it within an expression, a method to your madness. Because if you're playing around, I turn the light out and we channel an energy and you're playing with it, and you're like, oh my goodness. If you cannot see it, and it's a mastered skill, you develop anything, and you're not clear on what that is, you're playing with it. I turn the light on and you think you're playing with, clay, and it's actually dog shit. This is problematic. So people tend to, they still have a fear aspect. This is the biggest contention, right? Because they still stay in their emotional state, but they go, I am strong. I am fearless. I am, which is the fundamental distortion. I have interesting conversations with when people go, it's the I am that gets you to the state of now. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. That is a psyop to separate you. But furthermore, when you take this sort of on a deeper level, you are able to tell whether someone can shit or get off the pot, because this physical flesh, if they're still in this idea or this relationship with this as their body, they will always be exhausted at some point or another, whether it's your massage therapist, an energy healer, whatever it is, a judge, jury, an executioner. You can decide how much you are truly the now moment. And so in Taoism, we alchemize the physical body. You create and develop Imperium over that, and you're able to move the energy at will. With 50 trillion cells that you have 0.07 points of potential energetics. Now you want to energize this, and some simple things within my Taoist path as a priest. One of the things we have to do is to be able to remove alcohol from a bottle and put it into water, and then you have to drink the alcohol bottle in 100 seconds, and we'll find out whether you're full of shit or not. We'll find out whether you can actually do the do or you are eating the do.
And this is something that you actually do.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
Well, it's about transmutation. I mean, this is part of the excitement of being in basically dominion, maestro, command of this energy potential. This is the whole point of it. These are crumbs that you use. Now, I've never ever come across someone that gets completely obsessed with it. I mean, I've come across 3 people in my lifetime that can levitate. 2 within the deep jungles of Indonesia. These are highly evolved sort of like cultivators. And 1 was my student. And they're like, well, if your student's levitating, why aren't you? Because I couldn't give a shit about it. I can teach you the method. My excitement, the thing that gets me all warm and fuzzy inside, is when I say a physical healing, a mental healing, emotional healing, a spiritual healing, all encompassing is the same. Yet when you can see it transmute, And like when you're like, have you ever bent spoons before, metal, anything like that?
No, I haven't.
Well,
I do
there's a
know that there in some traditions that they do that to show the
well,
alchemy.
it's a form of consciousness that you
Yeah.
get into, and what happens
Mhm.
is things start to transmute, wiggle, and shift and change.
Mhm.
And so this same method that you start with metal bending is
Mhm.
on your road to understanding that state of the now moment. So when you watch physical flesh transmute before your very eyes, for me, the first time I saw it was 30 years ago, gangrenous flesh going back to pink in color in 40 minutes. That was mind blowing to me. Now I
Mhm.
see this on a daily basis and attuned to the resonance that makes it possible because I'm not limited by a perception or belief system.
Mhm.
I know this to be true. I become childlike in my state. Every experience that I have in the now moment in the last 30 years is if the first time I ever experienced it. So it refers back to the gratitude aspect that you talked about. Furthermore, first time I ever saw your face, that is for everybody.
Yeah.
That simplicity, that childlike nature,
Yeah.
taking things at face value is
Yeah.
your incredible intuitive knowing. That charge you're getting right now, we are
Yeah.
oscillating, my dear friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is the aha. You just had an
Mm.
aha Watson elementary, my dear Watson moment, because it
Mm.
comes down to that simplicity. But
Yeah.
my dear friend, you must know this, having consciously, as through your own admission, over 10 years doing this stuff. The reality is, very few people obtain that, and they need us as guides to help them
Mm.
go back to the path of who they are. That's
Yeah.
it. And once they hit that resonance, once you bring
Yeah.
it, baby, it becomes realized. And
Mm.
that is so
Yeah.
exciting because
Yeah.
I feel, I know in my heart of hearts that you have the same gratitude and excitement and childlike
Mm.
state every time you experience this, every time you
Oh,
wake
yes.
and embody your
Definitely.
state, right?
Yeah.
And every
I
time you
always
emerge
hear
from it,
that. I always get that feedback when I work, when I stand before groups, and you look so happy. You look so happy and you're shining. And that shine has nothing to do with outer appearance. It is the joy that comes from within, and connecting in that state. And for me, it cannot be in any other way. I this is this is how I know my connection with the all, the one, the divine, that it is through my joy. And previously, I sometimes used tools to ask the yes and no questions in daily life, like a pendulum. I could use it just for yes and no questions, quick answers. And I don't do that as much now, because the way that I can feel into something, it could be, is this good for me? Is this good for me? Should I have this? Is this good for me? And the reaction that comes is joy. It is like, whoosh, and it's joy. And it is that childlike joy that comes. And now I know that reaction is my yes. That is the alignment that, okay, so it's this direction, it's this choice and not the other one. And so that this immediate joy is my way of knowing. And it's always there. And to shift over in an instant, it's it's something that has changed over the years, and it becomes easier. When I previously needed a long preparation of tuning in and meditating and clearing my energy field, or whatever, I can do very quickly now. And it is about the frequency, I guess. And again, I don't have the words for it. I just feel and know from that state of inner joy. Mhm.
Amen, my dear friend. Amen. Or it just has that moment where you had me at hello, and it's all gravy at this point. It's such a merging and a unified moment for both of us, and it is. It's self-realized, and that is knowing, and that's the beauty and the allure of a journey to that state of knowing. That knowing never ends. That means that it's always this communion of students, teacher, student. You are just oscillating through your incredible path of realization, and it's always exciting to hear this. I get as excited as anyone else, as if it's the first time I ever saw it, experienced it, and that when you get down to more metaphysical sort of paranormal states that people are not familiar with, but they hear about, it excites them. When I take them on a mystery journey, I'm out here in Las Vegas, so I will go and do a body dowsing reading on the casinos. I'll teach where the hot spots are, where the power centers, the ley lines, the vortices, and furthermore, the spirit entities that are basically occupying the space. And so I've done a couple, and I'm going to do a lot more. People love going to the casinos and going, holy crap, I can feel this.
I can imagine.
Yeah. It's exciting. They're like, it's right where it was on the video when San Qing was there. Holy crap, because this is all really taking place. So when you go into the spirit world, I will say everything has its unique frequency, even though you could say potentially it's the same. I have, I've worked with the big G, JC, all of the above, energy potential, Buddha. There are an infinite amount of spirits and energies within this, as you put it, realm. So I like to experience it all as it is a reflection of what we call the facet of the diamond of perfection. And so that is all within that spiritual consciousness. And so it's so very exciting. This is always exciting. I've really enjoyed our conversation today, my dear friend.
Yeah, it is exciting, and it sort of, like a puzzle. The pieces fit together, and it gives new one bit give new light to another, and I always feel that it's interesting to speak to someone who has a little bit different language, a little bit difference in the how to, and usually many that I meet have the experience of connecting, because now you spoke about Las Vegas, and it's very fascinating because where I am, usually it's about going to places out in nature. It's not in the city. So we go up, when I've been up in the Arctic, and in contact with mountains or lakes, and the beings living there, and the energetic portals and so on. And in a way, it is so easy to connect because the energy is so pure, and you are, especially if you are walking, we have been walking barefoot on the small path, and there are no cars, and you meet only a few people the whole day. But to connect and see and experience energy in a place that is a big city, it's a different thing. And I would guess that in a way it is more difficult because there's so much noise, energetic noise. And so I find that so fascinating because I've been we were in Italy this spring, and we were in the city of Torino, which is a city. But still, it's not a city as Las Vegas is a city. It's different. And so I am curious about how you tune into the field in that area.
No, everything's energy.
Yeah.
But when I teach people body dowsing, it becomes very apparent and very easy to sample into anything instantaneously. It comes along, more definitive sort of like realizations like psychometry, radiesthesia, sensory perception that is a developmental skill. The method is how you are able to elementary, my dear Watson, become clear as what the crumbs are, and it's method, and
Yeah.
it's for a Taoist, it's been around for hundreds of thousands of years, and all I do is teach people the method, and they're able to acquire this sensory perception that becomes sort of like elusive and almost impossible to obtain for most people because they get a taste of the dragon, the spiritual dragon, but they don't have enough inquiry or self-realized desire to expand on that, because most people become everyone is excessive or deficient, and that comes from their emotional state. To start to refine the energy potential, the simplistic part of transmutation is there's an emotional state in excess or deficiency of acquiring the virtue, and when you acquire the virtue, you are no longer acting virtuous, you are the present moment. So the virtue is sort of like so many people walk that path of I'll fake it till I make it. Oh, I'm sitting here, I'm channeling people, and very few people are aware of that. I get quite a few people that are on the fake it till they make it path, and I'm like, listen, hey, I'm not here to oust you. I'm here to give you what you need to make it realize, because you want it so bad, but it's just not happening. So let's give you what you need so you are realized as that tuning fork, as that catalyst, that conduit, and it's not just in your mind and you're spouting off propagating nonsense that is on the verge of something, because they're getting something. Like I'm getting something, but I noticed that people take me more seriously when I close my eyes and I move and I do that. I mean, honestly, that's cool. When I first started 30 years ago, I was like, I had so much, and it was just about the mastery. I would break chairs, break tables, because it was just coming through, and about just sort of like regulating. But I don't ever tell someone, oh my goodness, there's too much energy. You got to stop. You got to contain that. That's not how it works. But a lot of people will want to get you to calm the F down, because this is a tuning fork. Let's repeat ourselves. The physical flesh is a tuning fork, and it becomes realized as this divinity, this divine spark, this concentrated diamond that is the center point to all things. And when people start to understand that, have the method, and they're able to replicate it, because it's one thing to have a method or a belief system, but it must be repeatable, but not to stay in this transitory state of psychosis where you're deluded, because it's you did it. Well, I did it once. I thought about my mother and she called me, and then they just fixate on it and they pull all their energy in from their physical or their auric field, their physical flesh, and they fixate on it, yet all the other deficiencies are drawing from their attention, intention, and they can't replicate it. And they're like, wow, I had it. I've done it 5 times. It's like, it's about understanding the infrastructure. When you understand the infrastructure, all things will be realized. Everything is frequential, everything. And when that is the currency, when that is your actual belief system that turns to a knowing, then we're getting down with the get down. But most people have these fundamental blocks within their unconscious, their psyche, that makes it limited. And they're like, I am. And I'm like, really? Show me. Oh, give me a minute. I've just got to go in the other room. I'll be back in a second. And of course, they never return, because they have fear. They have, I mean, doing
Mm.
exorcisms where people are spinning around like stuff out of magazines and movies, which Hollywood likes to propagate this stuff. That's the stuff I'm used to. I've done it 1,000 times over. Those energies are very real. Why are they real? I'll tell you why. Because people believe in
Yes.
heaven and hell. So if you believe in heaven and hell, understand you will find it. It will
Yeah.
come to you. It will be
Yes.
realized. So to move to this imperium, the state that Camilla and I are talking about, where you're detached but attached, you're detached from the limited, from the mortal, and you're attached to the potential and the now moment is when all things are realized, and we call it the point of no return.
Yeah.
And so that's the fundamental thing. It's like you have to help people move and merge towards remembering who they are and being able to unify that frequency as their currency of what their reality is.
Yes.
The process.
And that's for many that is difficult to understand, that the need to find how this feel, appear, happen within them, and not copying someone else's path or ways, but at the same time practicing, because sometimes we need a tool, or as you said, teachings how to do this, but we need to combine it with how does that work for me. You know, we are all different in how we easiest come in contact with ourselves. But my experience is that those who come in groups or sessions, some have a constant need for both confirmation. They never let that part go, where they need this constant confirmation that they're on the right path, or so they really would like me or someone else to confirm that something is the right choice, and so on. And so I tend to encourage them to practice to listen within. It sounds so easy to listen within and to do their own practice, but then the real need is to turn the attention from the me or another teacher or another healer, or searching for answers in the outer, and listening within. And it seems that that part is really, really difficult for so many, because of how we are brought up and what we think about ourselves, and not trusting that it is possible for me to tap into that energy and finding that truth, and so on. So the lack in trust, and also the lack in, I would say, discipline to do it and do it and do it, and keep connecting in. That is what keeps many from coming further on in their spiritual path, that they tend to stay and searching for guidance from the outer, from others, but they can still be in a loving energy within themselves. But there will be this block coming forward and coming further in their development, because the trust in themselves is always standing in the way. And it's just common that it is like that, because we have different blocks and different upbringings, and what we have with us, and I would say from other timelines, that is my language, or past lives, and however we see that. But we seem to have something with us, a baggage, when we are born, and that also determines how much can we trust ourselves to be in contact? How much can we be the voice and the experiencing for the one, for the divine, and being that output in the world? And so it seems that there are many who separate themselves from the potential from their own soul. So they separate themselves, that I am here and that seems impossible to become that. But in truth, that part is already there. It's already within that part that already knows. But it's difficult for many, and it's a journey for me also. But this is something that I work with continuously with others.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of ground level stuff from a Taoist seeker perspective, because it's, I mean, I refer to it as infantile in its nature, because you're emotionally, it's just the emotional currency. So this is the humanistic condition. It's called the human condition, which is where everyone starts. So if you have helplessness, hopelessness, sadness, depression, anger, fear, anxiety, these are all traits of the human condition. So when you, first and foremost, you must move that off the table. So your emotions don't control you, you control your emotions. And to master that, it comes from the seed of the energy potential, because that is energy. Thoughts, feelings, and emotions are energy. So you move that off the table as the first part. You will never return to it once I show you the path of realization. You will remember, and that will stay there. But you know, when you mention certain things like difficulty, it does resume the humanistic condition. It's what we call heteroaction. So from a psychologist's perspective, heteroaction is,
That's a new word for me.
if I put my hand out, what are you going to do? You will most likely, from a humanistic perspective, attempt to shake my hand. But in actuality, that is a tend or a way to force your hand upon the mental will of the individual. But from a humanistic perspective, from the human condition, so you can be that Sherlock to your Watson and identify what these things are. So when you walk to a door and grab a handle, I dare you to not close the door behind you. It's a habit. What you start, you must finish. This is the human condition. And from that is the reflection of duality, which is the electromagnetism. So you start to go, aha, elementary, my dear Watson. And the more you layer these things together, the more you can be that self-evident, self-realized experiencer that has a knowing, because they're able to put these in a frequential order that is sensed to them, rather than being in that state of potentially helplessness, hopelessness, despair, because that is nonsensical. That the truth is that is not real. That is not the currency of this reality. And furthermore, when they're around you, that is realized. A lot of psychologists don't like me because I refuse to waste my time with this nonsense, which you can gain in your weeds. You can be here for decades wondering why grandma only gave me 5 cookies when I was 2, and mummy smacked me with a wooden spoon when I was 5. And guess what? Daddy roused on me when I was 10. So these are now, you know, cycles of events that I need to decipher to determine who I am. And people always go, Jifu, Jifu. Well, who am I? What is going on? Why am I here? And I answer quite simply with this. Why not? Oh, shit. Oh, my goodness. But once you feel into what you're transmitting, Camilla, it doesn't matter what it has no relevance as to what is there then or how or anything else. But this is your default. When we go to a point of no return where you are detached to be attached to all things, that is what we call Wu Wei, effortless action, effortless effort. That means that everything is now. And you don't have to go to something. it will come to you as you are the Imperium, you are the now moment. So all this other stuff that we have to get in the weeds of is irrelevant. It's not important. But you have to, as the seeker, be able to create the language, as we return back to how you help people find themselves, and they create a language that works for them, that is in different layers of perception, a developmental skill and method that they are acquiring through your teachings. And that is the most important thing. Apart from anything else, you are contracting and expanding. That is the truth. You're all things and nothing. You are the breath in and the breath out. You are the pause, the contraction. You are the now moment. And it will be realized. And when you just get down to the glass half empty or half full, oh my goodness, why did I do 47 different spiritual programmings and 10 years as a cultivator and as a psychic and a Reiki master, all this kind of stuff, and you come to your own realization that it's all because what happens is when you have that point of no return and you are detached and attached as the ultimate Imperium, guess what? Anything is possible. So it doesn't matter if you breathe in and breathe out. It's euphoric. It's ecstasy. It's bliss. And furthermore, you can deep dive into something that would be potentially limited, or someone would perceive it as fear, anger, helplessness, hopelessness, depression. These are no longer on the menu as the human condition once you have detached and attached furthermore to the now moment. Now all of these things are expressions of expansion.
It has been very interesting this last period because on social media and the news and so on, the expressions of how everyone is feeling and the world and where are we going, what is happening, and so on. And the feeling that I feel is still the same. The feeling that I am in, I mean, I could be in a moments of stress when I needed to take the bus and going here, and I have my children, and it brings up different situations. But the state that I am in and how to tap into this joy or euphoria, it's still there. Nothing has really changed anything. So the current movement right now, whether you think it's good or bad, or the world is going under, or it's the best that could ever have happened in the world, it simply doesn't matter, because the experience of life is still the same. Really, nothing has changed in the inner world from one moment, from one day to the next. And that just observing that is both strange and fascinating at the same time. I guess it has to do with how you just the inner knowing, and how you relate to your own feelings or emotions and so on. But it is as if the bigger picture, or the state of eternal life, that this moment, what I am able to tap into, connected with everything, that moment, nothing else matters in the details. And I can give value to all these things. And of course I do, to the daily life with my children and what we are doing, or if we're going on a vacation or not, and how we create memories and so on, and adding value to all these experiences. But at the same time, this is simply a moment in eternity, and where we are going, and all the decisions doesn't matter in a way. Mhm.
Well, I mean, I would have to concur. The realization is, beginning of this year, everyone was coming to Latsu wanting answers, and I do transmissions with him. I enjoy the experience, even though, quite frankly, I'm as dumb as rocks. Anything that comes out of my mouth is his speaking, his teaching. But furthermore, I like to encapsulate and that transmission at a visceral, kinesthetic level that is even more concentrated when I just channel and I record it, and he has fun with his little cheeky perception of reality. But that furthermore, everyone's like, "Oh my goodness, death and destruction." The truth of what's going on right now is the earth will become more clear and more grounded from every minute. Since the last supposed major event within a political sphere of America, you're going to find more unified states of calm and grounding than you've ever seen before. It's only going to ramp up. There's going to be more of that knowing, that grounding, and people like, that doesn't even make sense. It's supposed to be financial ruin, death and destruction, apocalypse.
Yes.
Now, I mentioned this, I have mentioned this, Latsu has mentioned this whole year. And every time he says that, more evidence of that is revealed, as that is the true nature. When someone peddles fear, understand that's your first red flag. That is in of itself a red flag for the seeker. Now, I'm not saying go and put your hand in a fire and you're not going to realize that it burns you. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the mental construct of the psyche that is commandeered by this thing, this currency we call emotion, and fear is what everyone's buying. Now, he would do it. His reaction is quite simple. It's like, imagine you're like a grain of sand asking the beach, what are we doing today? Fall back into the beach and be realized. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't make this shit up. This is wild stuff, because, he's kind of cheeky, but like, here it is for you. The simplicity of all things. It's right here.
Yes.
And we are, you are me, I am you. All is one, one is all. That charge we got, that elated state of hallelujah. That's it.
Yeah. And what we look for grows. What we look for and what we expect. So I would say that I am truly confident, because sometimes I channel in what would be sort of prophetic ways of channeling, and not one time has it come that the death and destruction Armageddon kind of. It's always been a path to more light, unity, but it all depends on the small choices. So it all depends on everyday life perception and the choices that we do when we experience something as good, bad, neutral, however we approach life. But the messages is always we are moving into a phase collectively where more and more people will realize the truth of reality, and they will be in contact with gifts, what we would call gifts, spiritual gifts, and that might take them to places where it will be confusing, and difficult in the beginning, but the change is just happening, and it's here, and what I see, it is signs everywhere. When you open your eyes and you start seeing those signs, and And it is those signs like rainbows or clouds that look like spaceships, and the synchronicity with the numbers and everything talks to you in a way that leads you forward on your path. And the ability to listen so that you follow in each moment. So that when I travel, for instance, with a group, and we are doing energy work in nature, or as we were in France lately and so on, I need to stop every now and then to tune in a little bit more, in a concentrated state. Because I need to know in that moment if we are going to go right or left. I don't have a plan. I have a very loose plan, but I don't know exactly what will happen, because I need to be in the moment connected, so that which wants to unfold, what we're supposed to experience in that moment, the potential of that moment together as a group. So that could happen, because if you have a plan and you prepare and you have like a script, and and this and this and this and this, you miss the juiciness, you miss the magic, because the magic can only happen in that moment when you listen and you follow. And so the journeys are so much about being a vessel for what wish to come through and what needs to unfold. I don't know where I was going with that thought now. I just stopped there. I lost track of the thought.
I mean, you don't have to track it. It is what it is. It's a now moment. I mean, quite frankly, this has been an amazing conversation, as I always love to commune with other incredible beings and bring resonance to this present moment. All my disciple students, 126 subscribers, are going to experience this, because every conversation I have is an experience for the observer. So the energy potential is present, and bring a little bit more amplification so that people can experience this as another crumb in their own journey of self-realization. And this has been magical, my dear friend. I'm going to put all your social media and everything under this podcast where that people can find you. I want my students, disciples, 126 subscribers to come and find your social sphere interweb offerings. And I want them to discover and explore all the things that you share, from a channel to a group healing, spiritual guide, all the things that you are offering right now. Is there anything you'd like to close this conversation out with?
I just wish to say that being part and having this conversation with you is about expansion. It is expansion on so many levels, and I am happy, and I am happy to know more about your way of teaching. And I realize that my knowledge about what you teach is limited, so I'm very curious and to see, because I come from the perspective I had before my guide said that stop reading. I mostly came from the esoteric, so it's European Western with a base in the traditions of the Christian Gnostic mysticism, that part. And so in a way to tap into these topics with you from another perspective. It's very expanding and it's fascinating, and I'm very grateful for this moment.
And so am I, my dear friend. What an incredible, expansive moment of self-realization. It's been wonderful having a conversation with you. I will, in closing, ask you one last question. What is your definition of spiritual consciousness?
My definition would be the truth of who we are, and what we realize when we open up the veils and see the truth, and realizing that everything is so much fun when you include dimensions beyond the physical and mental.
Amen to that. I've done hundreds of these podcasts, never got the same answer, as I shouldn't. And that was just beautiful and perfection right here, right now.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you, my
Enjoy.
dear. I want to thank you very much for coming and spending time with us here today. I'm very grateful for you. Furthermore, I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And I am your humble servant and Sifu Taoist Master San Qing. And I'll see you on the next one, guys.